On today's episode, I get all cinematic on top of Beachy Head and try and lure some sheep into my photo. Here's how. Play tape. Morning team, welcome to Beachy Head, and this is on the south coast of England for those of you across the pond. It's about 7:30 in the morning. I got up at 4:30 to get here. I had a couple of hours drive, but I just missed sunrise unfortunately. But I threw the drone up, got some footage on that, and got a nice little composition here. Oh, I've got a boat coming into the shot as well. I've got an 85mm lens on, and it's f8, 250th of a second, ISO 100. And just focusing on the lighthouse. See if I can get that boat in as well. So I found this little composition here, this really cool windswept tree, those cyclists that are just being framed, I don't know if you can see them, and then this wispy cloud. I'm just going to give this a go. that's me done for the morning. I didn't really knock it out of the park. The weather was a bit bland. I didn't really get any portfolio shots. So what I'm going to do is head down to Brighton, which is about 15 miles down the coast. And I know of this windmill. So there's a bit of cloud cover coming in now. So I might try some long exposure and see what we get. Right, I'm just outside Brighton, and this is the majestic windmill I was telling you about. She's decommissioned, which is a shame, and unfortunately there's this electric fence surrounding it, which isn't normally here, and neither are the sheep. But that could work in our favour if they'd just creep towards the camera and create a bit of foreground interest. Right away I'm thinking of this as a black and white image. The sun keeps creeping in and out, so there should be some nice drama and light and shade on that windmill. But I've got all afternoon. I think the sheep are coming. Camera settings, we're on f8, 500th of a second, ISO 100, and still waiting for these sheep to come into my foreground. But it's a lovely moody scene. That was such a good day. It's just so nice to get out finally without fear of getting slapped with a fine. I'm already planning my next photography trip. Right, let's have a look at one of those images from the end of the day and how I converted it to a black and white image. So here's our raw image open in Lightroom, and the first thing I'm going to do is engage Adobe Monochrome to get our base black and white profile. And straight away I'm going to head down to the mixer sliders to affect the luminance of the original raw colours in the image. I'll start with the blues in the sky and darken those down to about -25. The grass in the foreground I'll brighten with the green and the yellow sliders. And that looks pretty good. And I'll just check if there are any purples in the image. Yep, just at the top of the sky here. Now I'm just going to work backwards on the basic sliders, starting with the D haze, which I'm just going to bring some punch into the sky. I'll introduce a touch of clarity and reduce that grungy texture to about -10. And I'll just lift the shadows in the windmill, and highlights can come down a touch. So if we just check back to where we started, that's looking in a pretty good place. Maybe a bump in the contrast. +15 should do it. Now for some local adjustments. I'm going to grab a radial filter and target the sheep and just bring those whites down a touch because I think they're a bit strong. And next, with a gradient filter, select all of the sky just tapering off towards the bottom and further increase the clarity for a bit more drama. And finally, a slight vignette to the bottom section of the grass to draw the eye into the scene. And one more adjustment before we head over to Photoshop is a slight crop on the left side to balance out the composition a touch.
Now let's just open it up in Photoshop and I'll just show you what further enhancements I made. Firstly, I just wanted to tidy up the image of distractions like this sensor spot, the gentleman walker and some other little bits. So the result ended up like this using a combination of spot remover and the clone stamp tool. And I decided to keep the black sheep of the family in the image after much deliberation. Next, I targeted the south-facing panel of the windmill using a curves adjustment layer, just to give it a bit more dimension and definition. And then a global adjustment to the overall exposure, again using a curves adjustment layer. And then I performed a touch of burning on the sheep's coats just to add a bit more texture. And finally, using a levels adjustment layer, I just increased the blacks to meet the start of the histogram for that extra black and white punch. So we went from a photograph taken in the middle of the day to a dramatic, moody landscape.
That's your lot, my friends. Hope you enjoyed my little jaunt along the south coast. Next stop may be the Lake District or even back up to Scotland. Oh, travel is so tantalising at the moment when it's been taken away from you for so long. But hopefully that's all behind us. So hit that like button if you fancy helping out the channel, and if you're new to the channel, welcome, and hit that subscribe button. Let's catch up next week.